This is a decision. Don't wake her, Ryu. Not for any reason.
Move.
She didn't mean to fall asleep in a stranger's car. She didn't mean to fall into his world either. But sometimes the most life-changing moments begin with exhaustion, a cold parking garage, and a door that should have been locked. The gun was already drawn before Seok Jin Han even stepped out of the elevator. His bodyguard, Ryu, had his weapon aimed at the backseat of the matte black Bentley before his boss could say a single word. The parking garage was silent except for the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the city breathing outside. It was 2:17 in the morning. Nobody should have been in that car. Ryu, sir. There's someone in the back seat. Seok Jin didn't flinch. He never flinched. He walked toward the car slowly, his hands in the pockets of his black coat, his face unreadable. He had just spent 3 hours in a private meeting on the 14th floor of this very hospital, a generous donation, a favor quietly returned, a debt erased. He was tired. He was ready to leave. And now someone was sleeping in his car. He stopped 2 feet from the window and looked in. She was curled against the door, still in her nurse's scrubs, her badge hanging around her neck. One hand tucked under her cheek, the other clutching the strap of a worn bag pressed against her chest like she was afraid someone would take it in her sleep. Her breathing was slow and deep. She hadn't even stirred when Ryu drew the gun. She was exhausted. The kind of exhausted that swallowed a person whole. Seok Jin stared at her for a long moment. Something moved through him, quiet, unfamiliar, like a door opening somewhere deep in a house he had stopped walking through years ago. He didn't understand it. He didn't try to. Ryu, sir. Should I remove her? Seok Jin, no. Ryu, sir. Seok Jin, take her to the penthouse. Guest suite. And don't wake her. There was a silence behind him that lasted exactly 3 seconds, the amount of time it took Ryu to process an order that made absolutely no sense, and then the sound of careful footsteps as his bodyguard moved to follow instructions. Nobody questioned Seok Jin Han. Not twice. Her name was Amara Osei, 28 years old. Born in Accra, raised between Ghana and Maryland, nursing degree earned on scholarships and stubbornness, and a mother who had ironed her school uniform every morning with hands that never stopped shaking from exhaustion. Amara had been working at St. Carver Memorial for 3 years. Tonight had been her 14th hour on shift. She had lost a patient at 11 p.m., a 62-year-old man named Harold who had squeezed her hand and called her baby girl and then just stopped. She had made it all the way to the curb outside before she sat down and let herself feel it. No tears. She was too tired for tears. Just the weight of it, pressing down on her chest like a stone. She had pulled out her phone to call her landlord and remembered, too late, that today was the day. The 15th. The day Marcus had told her the locks would be changed if she didn't move her things out by noon. She had forgotten. She had been working a double shift, and she had simply forgotten, and now it was past 2 in the morning and she had nowhere to go. She had walked back into the parking garage just to think. Just to sit somewhere quiet and figure out a plan. The black car had been there, slightly ajar on the rear passenger side, not wide open, just enough, the way expensive cars sometimes were when the sensor didn't catch properly. She had told herself 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to sit in something warm and quiet while she figured out her next move. She was asleep in 4. She woke up to silk. That was the first thing she noticed. The sheets beneath her fingers were cool and impossibly smooth, and for a disoriented moment she thought she was still dreaming. Then she opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was high and white with recessed lighting dimmed to a warm glow. The bed she was lying in was enormous. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows on the far wall, the city spread out below her like scattered diamonds, thousands of lights blinking in the dark, the skyline close enough that she felt like she could reach through the glass and touch it. She sat up so fast her vision tilted. She was not in her apartment. She was not in anyone's apartment she had ever seen. She was in someone's penthouse, in someone's guest suite, wearing her own scrubs, with her badge and her bag both intact, and she had absolutely no memory of getting here. A soft knock at the door made her spine go rigid. "Attendant, Miss Osei." Mr. Han would like to see you for breakfast. Whenever you're ready. Amara, who is Mr. Han? Attendant, the owner of this residence. Attendant, the owner of the car. Amara closed her eyes. She pressed her badge flat against her sternum and took one long breath. Then she stood up, straightened her scrubs, and walked to the door. If this man thought she was going to be grateful or frightened or easily managed, he was about to be very surprised. He was sitting at the far end of a dining table long enough to seat 14, reading a document like she wasn't there. He didn't look up when she walked in. He was younger than she expected, mid-30s, sharp-jawed, dark hair pushed back from his face with the kind of careless precision that cost money. He wore a plain black shirt, no tie, sleeves rolled to the elbow. A pot of tea sat near his right hand. The rest of the table was empty. Amara, I'd like to know where I am. Seok Jin, Seoul, South Korea. Amara, I know I'm in Seoul. Seok Jin, then you already know where you are. Amara, I want to know whose penthouse this is and why I was brought here without my consent. He finally looked up. His eyes were dark and completely calm, the kind of calm that wasn't peace but control. The kind that came from years of deciding what to show and what to bury. Seok Jin, you were asleep in my car. I made a decision. Amara, you made a decision. About where I would sleep. Without asking me. Seok Jin, you were unconscious. Amara, that is not the point. For the first time something shifted in his expression, barely, just at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. Something more reluctant than that. Seok Jin, sit down. Eat. Then we'll talk. Amara, I don't want to eat. I want answers. Seok Jin, you've been asleep for 6 hours. You need to eat. The food won't kill you. If I wanted to harm you, Miss Osei, you would already know. The absolute certainty in his voice should have terrified her. Instead it settled something, some animal instinct that had been scanning for danger since she opened her eyes. She sat down. Direct hit if you enjoyed that opening, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Comment below, should she stay or run? 3 days passed. Amara told herself she was staying because she had nowhere else to go. She told herself it was practical, logical. A temporary arrangement between two adults who had found themselves in an unusual situation. She told herself this every morning when she woke up in those silk sheets and looked out at that skyline and felt something dangerously close to comfortable. She did not tell herself the truth. Not yet. The penthouse had rules. Seok Jin had laid them out on that first morning with the detached efficiency of a man reading terms and conditions he had written himself. Seok Jin, 1. You do not ask questions about my business. Not what I do, not who I meet, not what happens on the top floor. 2. You do not leave this building without informing security first. 3. The elevator to the 42nd floor requires my personal access code. You will not attempt to obtain it. Amara, and what exactly do I get in return for following the rules of a man I didn't ask to meet? Seok Jin, safety. And time. Amara, time for what? Seok Jin, to figure out your next move. Unless you'd prefer I call you a cab. She hadn't answered. And he hadn't called the cab. On day 2 she had wandered into the kitchen at midnight and started cooking. Not because she was hungry, but because cooking was the thing she did when the world felt sideways. Her mother had taught her that. Standing at a stove in Accra with Ghanaian music playing low on a radio held together with electrical tape. Jollof rice with the kind of attention it deserved. Fried plantain. She hadn't expected him to appear in the kitchen doorway at 12:30 a.m., still dressed, looking at her with an expression that was somewhere between confused and disarmed. Seok Jin, you cooked. Amara, I was hungry. Seok Jin, the kitchen staff. Amara, are asleep. Are you going to stand there or are you going to eat? He had pulled out a stool at the kitchen counter and sat down. She put a plate in front of him. He ate the entire thing without speaking. When he was done, he sat for a moment looking at the empty plate. Seok Jin, my mother used to cook late at night. It was the first personal thing he had said to her. She understood instinctively that it was also rare. She didn't push it. She just nodded and kept washing the pan, and the silence between them shifted, just slightly, just enough from guarded to something else. On day 3 she broke rule 2. She had barely made it through the penthouse door before Seok Jin was standing in the hallway. Seok Jin, you left. Amara, I went across the street. I was gone 40 minutes. Seok Jin, you left without telling security. Amara, Ryu was on the phone and I didn't want to interrupt. I'm a grown woman, Seok Jin. Not a prisoner. It was the first time she had used his name. They both noticed it. His jaw tightened. Seok Jin, you don't understand what leaving without protection means in my world. Amara, then explain it to me. Because you keep asking me to follow rules for a life I don't understand. You want my compliance, but you won't give me context. That's not an arrangement. That's control. The silence that followed was long and charged. Something wrestling with something else behind his eyes. Seok Jin, there are people who watch this building. Who watch everyone who enters and leaves. Not because of you. Because of me. And if they see someone connected to me walking alone in the street at 2 in the morning, it becomes a problem. Amara, connected to you. Am I connected to you? He didn't answer. But he didn't walk away either. Amara, I'll tell Ryu next time. He nodded once. Turned to leave. Amara, Seok Jin. Thank you. For explaining. He didn't turn around. But his shoulders changed barely, just a fraction, like something in him loosened a degree it hadn't loosened in a very long time. It was Tae who first said it out loud. Tae, she needs to go. Today. Seok Jin, no. Tae, she's a liability. She's a civilian. She has no idea what she's sitting in the middle of, and the longer she stays the more dangerous it gets, for her and for you. You don't do this. In 15 years you have never done this. Why is she still here? Seok Jin closed the laptop slowly. He was quiet for a long moment. Seok Jin, do you remember the night in Chicago? 2014. Tae, that was a long time ago. Seok Jin, I was 23. I had just been cut loose after the Yun deal fell through. 3 men from the Bratva found me in an alley off Michigan Avenue. I had 2 broken ribs and a knife wound in my side, and I was lying in the dark thinking very calmly that I was going to die there. Tae said nothing. Seok Jin, a nurse found me. She was walking home from a late shift. She called no one. She said nothing. She stayed with me until I was stable and then she was gone. I looked for her for 3 years. I never found her. Tae, Amara is not that woman. Seok Jin, no. But she's the same. Tae, you're going to get her killed. Seok Jin said nothing. But his eyes stayed on Amara for just a moment longer before he looked away. Hit subscribe right now and hit the notification bell. The next part is where everything explodes. Comment below. Did you expect Seok Jin's real reason for keeping her? The knock came on a Tuesday. Not a polite knock. This was the kind that landed on a door like a statement, heavy, deliberate, the kind that said, I know you're in there and I am not leaving. Amara heard it from the kitchen and felt something cold move through her before she even knew why. Marcus's voice filled the speaker. Marcus, I just want to talk to her. She's my girlfriend. I'm worried about her. You can't keep me from. Amara, she's not your girlfriend. We broke up 4 months ago, Marcus. You changed my locks. You kept my things. And now you're standing in a lobby that has nothing to do with you. Marcus, baby. I've been looking everywhere for you. I was scared. I just need to see your face and know you're okay, and then I'll go, I promise. Just come down. 2 minutes. Amara, no. Marcus, Amara. Amara, no, Marcus. Marcus, you think whoever you're up there with is going to protect you? You don't know these people. You don't know what you've walked into. I'm trying to help you. The intercom cut off. Amara turned around to find Seok Jin standing 3 feet behind her, his phone in his hand, his face absolutely still. Seok Jin, he'll leave. Amara, you cut the intercom. Seok Jin, he'll leave. Amara, what did you do? Seok Jin, I made a call. Amara, Seok Jin, what did you do? Seok Jin, nothing permanent. He simply reconsidered. He won't come back. Amara stared at him for a long moment. She knew she should be unsettled. But what she felt instead was something she couldn't entirely name, something that sat in her chest warm and complicated and a little frightening in its own right. Amara, you can't just fix everything with a phone call. Seok Jin, I didn't fix everything. I fixed that. Amara, there's a difference? Seok Jin, yes. Everything is harder. She almost laughed. It came out as an exhale, sharp and involuntary. Amara, thank you. Amara, the reason you kept me here. It's not just because I had nowhere to go. Is it? It wasn't a question. They both knew it wasn't a question. Seok Jin, get some rest, Amara. And he walked away. She stood watching him go and understanding for the first time that she was in serious trouble. The comfortable kind. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark thinking about the way he had said her name. Not Miss Osei. Amara. Low and careful. Like something he was allowing himself that he hadn't allowed before. She heard the balcony doors slide open. She knew it was him. She got up. He was standing at the railing with his back to her, a glass of something dark in his hand, looking out at the city the way a person looked at something they owned, but didn't love. She came to stand beside him. Not close. Just present. Amara, tell me something true. Seok Jin, that's a dangerous request. Amara, I know. Seok Jin, I haven't slept more than 4 hours in one stretch in 11 years. My doctor says it's stress. I think it's something else. Amara, what do you think it is? Seok Jin, I think when you build your life doing things that can't be undone, part of you stays awake to watch for what's coming. Insurance. Amara, that sounds lonely. Amara, what happened to you? Before the money. Before all of this. Seok Jin, my family decided what I would be before I could decide for myself. And I was very good at it. So there was never a reason to become anything else. Amara, and now, the question hung between them in the night air, alive and impossible to take back. He looked at her for a long time. Long enough that her heartbeat changed. Long enough that the space between them felt like it was getting smaller without either of them moving. And then his phone rang. The moment shattered. He was back in an instant, phone up, face closed, wall rebuilt so fast it was as if the last 5 minutes had never happened. Seok Jin, go inside. Now. Amara, what's happening? Seok Jin, Amara. Inside. Now. She went. She was in the safe room before she fully understood she was moving toward it. Ryu had appeared from nowhere, moving her down a corridor she hadn't known existed, into a reinforced room with screens and a lock that sealed from the inside with a sound like a vault. Ryu, stay here. Don't open this door for anyone but Mr. Han. Anyone. Amara, Ryu, what is happening? Ryu, stay here, Miss Osei. She watched the screens. Men she didn't recognize moving through the lower levels. Seok Jin's team responding, fast, coordinated, terrifyingly efficient. And then one camera showed her Seok Jin, and then it showed her something else. A graze. His left arm. A streak of dark across the sleeve of his shirt. Her whole body went still. She was a nurse. In every situation, under every kind of pressure, she was a nurse first. The vault door was opened before the rational part of her brain had finished arguing against it. Direct hit subscribe right now. The next batch is the one you've been waiting for. Amara walks out of that safe room. The walls come all the way down. Drop a comment. Are you Team Amara or Team Seok Jin? She found him in the corridor outside the second floor meeting room. Still standing, still issuing orders into his phone, his left sleeve dark and wet. His team moved around him like water around a rock. Not a single one of them had apparently thought to address the fact that their boss was bleeding. She walked straight through all of it. Amara, sit down. Seok Jin, I'm fine. Amara, you're bleeding. Sit down. Something in her voice, steady and absolute and completely unmoved by who he was or what surrounded him, made him go still. The men around them went still too. Nobody spoke. He sat. She worked quickly and quietly, the way she always worked when it mattered, her hands sure and unhurried, her focus complete. The graze was deep but clean. No bullet lodged. He watched her the entire time. Not the wound. Her. Seok Jin, you left the safe room. Amara, you were hurt. Seok Jin, that's not a reason. Amara, it's the only reason I need. I'm a nurse. You can be as dangerous as you like on your own time, but when someone is bleeding in front of me, I don't have a choice about it. That's not how I'm built. She tied off the bandage and finally looked up to find his face about 8 inches from hers. Close enough that she could see the exact moment something in his expression gave way. All the way open. A man who had spent 20 years building walls looking at the one person who had walked through all of them. Seok Jin, Amara. Amara, don't. Seok Jin, don't what? Amara, don't say something you're going to walk back in the morning. I can't keep watching you open a door and then close it. I'm not built for that either. Seok Jin, I don't know how to do this. I know how to run organizations. I know how to manage risk. I know how to make problems disappear. I don't know how to. Amara, be a person? Seok Jin, yes. Something like that. She walked to his office the next morning without knocking. Amara, I'm going to say something and I need you to just hear it. Not analyze it. Not manage it. Just hear it. He set down his pen. Nodded. Amara, I've been running for a long time. Not from anything dramatic. Just from stopping. From being still long enough to look at my life and ask if it's what I actually want. I've been so busy surviving that I forgot to live. And then I woke up in your penthouse and for the first time in 3 years I felt still. Like I could breathe. Like someone had finally turned the noise off. Amara, I'm not the nurse from Chicago. I'm not a ghost you're trying to repay. I'm not a liability your people keep warning you about. I'm standing right here. Right in front of you. When are you going to actually see me? The longest silence the room had ever held. He stood. Crossed the room. Stood in front of her and looked at her the way he had looked at her through the car window on that first night. Seok Jin, if you stay, I can't promise it's safe. Amara, I didn't ask for a promise. Seok Jin, my world. Amara, I know your world. I've been living in it for 2 weeks. I'm asking anyway. He reached out. Took her hand. Carefully. Like he was holding something he wasn't sure he was allowed to hold. Seok Jin, stay. One word. All the weight of a man who had never asked for anything in 20 years behind it. She looked down at their hands. His larger, scarred, careful around hers. She looked up at his face and she felt the smile come up from somewhere deep and true and completely unmanaged. Amara, I'm not going anywhere. 3 weeks later, Tae walked into Seok Jin's office and found him on the phone, not a business call. Something quieter. He was leaning back in his chair with his eyes on the window, and he was listening more than he was talking, and there was something in his face that Tae had never seen there before in 15 years. Tae stood in the doorway for a moment. Then he turned around and walked back out without saying a word. Some things didn't need a briefing. She left her jacket on the chair by the door. He found it an hour after she left for the hospital. He stood in the entryway holding it. It was ordinary. In a penthouse full of extraordinary things, this jacket was just a jacket. Slightly worn at the left cuff. A small ink stain on the inside lining from a pen that had exploded in her pocket during a double shift. He stood there for what was probably an embarrassing amount of time for a man of his particular reputation. He folded it. Set it on the chair by the front door. Her chair. The one that had been just a chair for years before she arrived. His phone buzzed. A message from her number, saved under a single letter. Hey, Amara, I forgot my jacket. Seok Jin, I know. Amara, you're keeping it, aren't you? Seok Jin, it'll be here when you get back. Amara, I know it will. He put his phone away. He stood there just a moment longer. Seok Jin Han, who had built an empire and run it without flinching, who had never kept anything that wasn't useful and let himself feel, without managing or burying it, what it meant to know exactly what was coming. She was. At 7 o'clock. He closed his laptop at 6:45. He was standing in the entryway at 6:58. The door opened at 7:02. She saw him standing there. She saw the jacket on the chair. She saw his face, all of it, right there on the surface, and she laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real one. Amara, you waited. Seok Jin, I was just the jacket needed. Amara, Seok Jin, you waited. She picked up her jacket. Walked past him into the penthouse. Amara, come on. I'm making jollof rice. He stood in the entryway for exactly 3 more seconds. Then he followed her home. Direct hit smash that like button if Seok Jin and Amara deserve a part 2. Subscribe for new stories every week. Comment your favorite line. Was it "Don't wake her" or "Then he followed her home"?